Mark Frost called me and asked me to go to Musso and Frank restaurant.
Twin Peaks wasn't canceled because of low ratings. The show was deliberately killed by its own network. ABC moved it to Saturday nights, knowing it would fail. They put it against unbeatable competition on purpose. Even when Aaron Spelling offered to pay for an entire third season out of his own pocket, ABC still said no. This wasn't about money or viewers. It was about something much darker. The real reason involves secret memos, corporate fear, and a conspiracy to destroy television's strangest masterpiece. The truth will shock you. In 1988, David Lynch met Mark Frost at a diner in Los Angeles called Dupar's. They sat at a table for 3 hours, and during that meeting, Lynch pulled out a napkin and started sketching. On it, he drew a map of a quiet small town with strange secrets. It had a diner and a hotel. Those sketches would later become the heart of Twin Peaks. Lynch had always been drawn to small-town life since growing up in Montana. But what fascinated him was the darkness hidden beneath its friendly surface. Frost later called that napkin the birth certificate of Twin Peaks. Within 6 months, they had a pilot script, and ABC gave them the green light. It all started with a napkin. A year earlier, in 1987, Lynch had a nightmare. Over and over, he dreamt of a girl's body wrapped in plastic, lying next to a peaceful lake. That image wouldn't leave his mind. He saw it at least 15 times in his sleep before he finally told Frost. He never wanted to reveal who killed her. For Lynch, the mystery itself was sacred. He feared that solving it would kill the atmosphere of the show. The detail about the plastic came from a real childhood memory. When Lynch was 12, he found a dead animal wrapped in plastic near his house in Montana. That memory stayed with him forever. For weeks, Lynch drove through Washington state, searching for the lake from his dream. When he saw Snoqualmie Falls, he knew he'd found it. Mark Frost brought his own magic. He'd spent 4 years writing and producing Hill Street Blues between 1982 and 1986, learning how to build complex stories and large casts. He had written 23 episodes and even earned Emmy nominations. He knew how to work within TV's rules, while Lynch pushed boundaries. When they joined forces, Frost shaped the investigation side of things. He built Agent Dale Cooper's sharp mind and his methodical habits. Meanwhile, Lynch filled the story with visions and symbols that felt like they came from another world. Frost made the characters feel real. Lynch made the world feel haunted. Together, they made people believe in talking logs and red rooms. The backwards talking scenes were no accident. Lynch first got the idea in 1977. While editing Eraserhead, a sound engineer accidentally played dialogue in reverse. Lynch became obsessed. He recorded himself speaking backwards, then reversed the tape. The sound was haunting. When filming Twin Peaks, Lynch asked the actors to learn their lines backwards. Michael J. Anderson, the man in the red room, spent 3 full weeks learning how to speak in reverse. One short scene sometimes took 47 takes. It was so hard to pull off that Lynch even delayed filming the pilot by 6 weeks. But when it worked, the result was unforgettable. The Red Room became one of the most famous and chilling parts of the entire show. During their pitch meeting with ABC in 1988, Lynch and Frost lied. They didn't mention any spirits or surreal visions. They called it a simple murder mystery in a small town, like Peyton Place, with a crime twist. ABC approved it and gave them $4 million to make the pilot. But once filming began, Lynch slowly added strange, dreamlike moments. When ABC executives finally saw the pilot, it was already full of bizarre scenes, but it was too late to cancel. They'd spent the money. The network felt tricked, and tensions grew. But Lynch got what he wanted. He brought the weird into living rooms across America. Lynch had worked with Kyle MacLachlan before on Dune. When he brought him in for Twin Peaks, he noticed how obsessed Kyle was with coffee, not just as a drink, but as a ritual. Lynch decided to turn that into Agent Cooper's obsession. Kyle didn't have to fake it. When he talked about damn fine coffee, he meant it. The coffee scenes were just Kyle being himself, and that made them feel honest. Viewers fell in love with Cooper because he wasn't just a character, he was real. Cheryl Lee was only supposed to be a dead girl. She played Laura Palmer's corpse in the first episode, but her performance was so powerful that Lynch couldn't stop thinking about her. He created a new character just for her, Maddie, Laura's cousin. She looked exactly like Laura. That wasn't part of the plan. Lynch invented it on the spot. That one change gave the story a whole new dimension and turned Cheryl Lee into one of the show's most important characters. Catherine Coulson's log lady wasn't just strange, she was personal. Coulson had been Lynch's close friend since the 1970s. They worked in theater together and even shared a house with other creatives. The logs she held in the show were real logs from Lynch's own property. When she whispered to them, it wasn't acting, it was trust, years in the making. Their bond gave her performance something deeper, something viewers could feel without understanding. In summer 1990, the day after the Emmy Awards, Lynch and Frost called 3 cast members into a dark room. Ray Wise was one of them. That's when he found out he was Laura's killer. He was shocked. To play Leland Palmer after that, Wise went deep into method acting. He sometimes stayed in character even during breaks. His scenes were so intense that some crew members felt nervous around him. His cry of guilt, his howl, became one of the scariest moments in television history. Wise didn't just act like a man possessed. He became one. Miguel Ferrer, who played Albert the sarcastic medical examiner, brought something no one expected. His lines weren't always scripted. He made up insults on the spot. Lynch loved it and kept them in. In fact, the famous line, "Get a life, punk?" wasn't in the script. Ferrer just threw it in. He kept changing details, playing with city names and speeches. His personality became the character, and his dark humor made Albert one of the show's most beloved figures. When Twin Peaks premiered on April 8, 1990, it smashed records. The pilot drew 34.6 million viewers. It was the most watched TV movie of that entire season. 1 out of every 3 people watching television that night was watching Twin Peaks. It even pulled viewers away from NBC's Cheers, which almost never happened. In Los Angeles, it was one of the top shows of the week. ABC hadn't seen numbers like that in 4 years. One of the most unforgettable images was Laura Palmer's homecoming queen photo. The version seen in the show wasn't the only one. The photographer took several different shots with subtle changes. The photo kept moving around the Palmer house, always visible, almost like a shrine. It symbolized how the town couldn't let go of her. The photo became more than a prop. It was a ghost, always watching. And then came the coffee and the cherry pie. Tweed's Cafe in North Bend, the real location for the Double R Diner, suddenly had fans lining up for a slice of pie and a cup of coffee. Orders exploded. The owner joked that the cherry pie ruined his budget. Even years later, tourists kept showing up. Every day, someone walks in just to taste what Agent Cooper loved. The cafe now sells mugs and t-shirts. Other diners across America made special menus. It wasn't just a show anymore. It was part of real life. Fashion changed too. People copied what the characters wore. Donna's oversized sweaters, plaid jackets, and saddle shoes suddenly appeared on the streets. The costumes blended 1950s styles with late 80s trends. The color palette of browns, greens, reds, and blues became iconic. Even 30 years later, fashion blogs still say Twin Peaks looks are timeless. Designers still borrow from it. What the characters wore shaped a generation's style. In 1990, something strange happened behind the scenes of American TV. Thomas Murphy, the CEO of Capital Cities, which owned ABC, called a private meeting with Mark Frost, co-creator of Twin Peaks. What he told him didn't sound like normal business talk. Murphy said they were unleashing some kind of digital Ebola into the world with the storytelling. He wasn't joking. He was serious, even scared. He believed the show was dangerous, not just risky for ratings, but something that could infect people's minds. He ran a conservative, family-owned company, and this show was nothing like anything they had aired before. It was dark, it was surreal, and Murphy didn't understand it. But the strange part is, he was sort of right. The show did spread like a virus into pop culture, into other shows, into how people thought about television. It changed everything, and it scared the people who were supposed to be in charge. ABC's executives didn't know what to do with Twin Peaks. They were panicking. This wasn't the usual TV drama. It didn't follow the rules. It mixed soap opera romance with creepy horror and weird dream-like scenes. It confused them. One executive said it felt like Lynch and Frost had invented a new kind of math that no one else could understand. That's how lost they felt. They couldn't put the show into a box. and that terrified them. They weren't just worried about controversy. They felt like they were losing control over what TV was supposed to be. Twin Peaks wasn't following the script they were used to. Then came the episode that crossed the line for many. In season 2, the audience found out that Leland Palmer had sexually abused his own daughter, Laura. Advertisers went into meltdown. Some big companies threatened to pull all their ads. Religious groups started attacking the show in magazines. One article was titled, "Incest for the Millions." Critics said David Lynch was slowly luring people into accepting something horrible. It became a moral panic. Sponsors were afraid. They didn't want their brands next to a story like that. ABC got nervous. They pushed Lynch and Frost hard to wrap up the murder mystery. That one storyline about Laura Palmer's abuse and death was the beating heart of the show. And now, the network wanted it over. Behind closed doors, ABC's top people were writing secret memos. These documents weren't made public until decades later, but when they finally came out, they showed how shaken the executives were. The people running capital cities weren't just confused. They were deeply disturbed by where the story was going. Possession, evil spirits, a murder mystery that turned into something darker. They didn't know how to deal with it, but they did know they wanted it to stop. Those memos showed the pressure building inside ABC. They couldn't take it anymore. Eventually, they gave Lynch and Frost an ultimatum. Reveal the killer, or we cut the funding. Mark Frost said, "It felt like the network had a gun to our head. That's how direct the threat was. Either they gave up the mystery or the money stopped flowing." That happened in 1991. ABC didn't care that the show had merchandise, awards, or fans around the world. It didn't matter. Their owner, Thomas Murphy, was still haunted by that same fear he had in 1990. He didn't want more digital Ebola on his watch. The only person who quietly supported the show was a young executive named Bob Iger. Yes, the same Bob Iger who would one day run Disney. But back then, even he couldn't stop what was coming. The order was clear: solve the mystery or the show ends. David Lynch never wanted the mystery solved. He believed the question of who killed Laura Palmer should go on forever. He said it directly: we should never solve the mystery. For him, the question was more important than any answer. He thought the mystery was the engine of the story, not just a puzzle, but something that kept the world of Twin Peaks alive. He even said later in 2018, "I don't need to explain what it means." That was his philosophy. Keep it open, let it breathe. He liked stories that felt like dreams, full of things you couldn't explain. If he had his way, Laura Palmer's case would have stayed unsolved for years, maybe forever. But ABC didn't care about artistic vision. They only cared about control. They used their power to force Lynch and Frost into signing a written contract. The deal was simple. They would only get a second season if they promised to reveal the killer. No deal, no show. At the time, ratings were already slipping. The pilot had been a hit, but the numbers were dropping fast. ABC knew this gave them leverage. They knew the creators were desperate to keep the story alive, so they played hardball, and it worked. Lynch and Frost gave in. The mystery would be solved. The promise was signed. ABC didn't just want it solved, they wanted it solved immediately. At first, they demanded it happen in the very first episode of Season 2. Lynch and Frost managed to stall them. They got a tiny win. They pushed the reveal to Episode 7, but that was as far as they could go. In that episode, titled Lonely Souls, Leland Palmer is revealed as the killer. But not just Leland. He's possessed by a dark force named Bob, and with that, the mystery was over. The show's energy vanished. What followed in the rest of the season felt scattered. Fans still debate if it ever recovered. That single decision to force the answer too soon broke the show. The mystery had been the spine of everything, and when it ended, the body collapsed. Some of the later storylines were so off track, they felt like they belonged to another show entirely. One involved a side character in a love affair that nobody cared about. It became clear, when networks interfere with something special, they can kill it. The man who oversaw all of this was Bob Iger. He had become president of ABC Entertainment in March 1989. That was right after the original Twin Peaks pilot had been approved. He liked the pilot at first. He even helped it get picked up, but once he was in charge, things changed. Iger wasn't against the show, but he didn't like how slow it was. He thought the mystery dragged, and he thought that wasn't good for business. He was focused on getting results, and Lynch's slow burn style didn't fit into his plan. When ABC forced David Lynch and Mark Frost to reveal who killed Laura Palmer in November 1990, Lynch didn't just disagree, he walked away. He didn't leave slowly. It was a clear, deliberate protest. Starting with episode 7 of season 2, Lynch disappeared from the creative process. For the next 14 episodes, the show lost its direction completely. Lynch was so furious with the network that he didn't even tell Ray Wise, the actor playing Leland Palmer, that his character was the killer until just before they filmed the reveal. ABC had already taken out newspaper ads screaming, "Finally! Saturday, November 10th, find out who killed Laura Palmer." Really, Lynch had no choice. He was cornered. While Twin Peaks drifted without him, Lynch poured himself into other projects. He focused on his film Wild at Heart and an art exhibit in Tokyo. Back on the show, things fell apart. Writer Harley Peyton, who had never directed anything like Lynch's Surreal World, was thrown into the role of unofficial showrunner. They had only planned through episode 9, so everything after that was made up as they went. Mark Frost was mostly absent too, off working on his movie Storyville. Peyton had to keep the show alive with barely any guidance. The results were bizarre and random. Viewers saw Civil War reenactments, alien references, and plot lines that felt like soap operas. None of it felt like Twin Peaks. Fans noticed immediately. Those episodes are now known as the bad part of season 2, and even casual viewers could tell Lynch was gone just by watching a single scene. Then Lynch came back. It wasn't random, it was calculated. ABC's Bob Iger invited Lynch and Frost to lunch, apologized for interfering, and asked what it would take to fix things. Lynch's first move was strange and totally on brand. He wanted Josie Packard's character to die by being trapped in a doorknob. That was his way of saying he was back. For the season 2 finale, Lynch stepped in to direct, and what he created was one of the most haunting cliffhangers in television history. Agent Cooper entered the Black Lodge, met his doppelganger, and came out possessed by Beob. Lynch made the ending so strange, so unresolvable, that it was nearly impossible for anyone else to continue the story. It was a trap, and it worked. The last line of that finale, Evil Cooper staring into the mirror and saying, "How's Annie?" with Bob's reflection smirking back, wasn't just spooky. It was a loaded weapon Lynch aimed at ABC. He knew this twist couldn't be resolved by typical network storytelling. Only he understood how it worked. If the network tried to continue the show without him, they'd be lost. So ABC gave up. They moved the show to a terrible time slot and canceled it soon after. Lynch had shut the door with one chilling scene. And 27 years later, when Twin Peaks: The Return finally aired on Showtime, he picked up right where he'd left off. That ending wasn't random. It had always been part of his plan. Back in April 1990, Twin Peaks had been a sensation. The pilot aired as a 2-hour TV movie on Sunday, April 8th, and it drew 34 million viewers. It was the most watched TV movie of the entire 1989-90 season, earning a massive 22 rating. When the show moved to Thursdays at 9 p.m., it kept smashing records. ABC hadn't seen ratings that good in 4 years for that time slot. It averaged a 16.2 rating, about 14.9 million homes. Even Cheers, one of NBC's most powerful shows, lost viewers to Twin Peaks. Everyone was talking about it the next day. ABC executives called it the water cooler syndrome. But then came the Saturday night disaster. When ABC moved the show in season 2, it collapsed. The new time slot was known in the industry as the Saturday Youth Graveyard, and it lived up to the name. The show dropped to 75th place in the ratings. It went from an average score of 8,608.1 in season 1 to just 5,195.9 in season 2. ABC's programming chief still called it a great ratings success, which made no sense. Everyone else could see it was a slow death. Saturday nights killed the momentum, the buzz, and the cultural impact, all gone in a matter of weeks. Even stranger, Nielsen noticed something nobody had seen before. When Twin Peaks moved to Saturdays, the fans didn't switch channels. They just stopped watching TV during that time slot. Millions of loyal viewers didn't look for other shows. They went out instead. This was unheard of in 1990. Viewers didn't usually abandon networks. They followed shows. But Twin Peaks fans were different. Thursday nights had become a ritual. Moving it felt like a betrayal. Researchers called it the lost audience mystery. The time slot had become part of the experience. Taking it away changed everything. It gets worse. ABC didn't just give up on the show. They sabotaged it. They scheduled Twin Peaks directly against NBC's powerhouse Saturday lineup. knowing it couldn't win. This wasn't an accident. Internal sources later confirmed it was deliberate. ABC executives wanted to cancel the show, but needed an excuse. By putting it up against unbeatable competition, they got what they wanted. Ratings tanked, the buzz vanished, and the network had its justification. Behind the scenes, it was a quiet takedown of a show they no longer wanted to support. And still, there was one last effort to save it. In June 1991, right after Season 2 ended, Aaron Spelling Productions offered to fully fund Season 3. They weren't just offering help, they were ready to cover 100% of the costs. They had co-produced the show already and held the foreign rights through World Vision Enterprises. Spelling saw the global value of Twin Peaks and was ready to act. ABC still said no. This wasn't about money, it was about control. ABC didn't want Lynch's style on their network anymore, no matter how much success or funding came with it. The money was real. International broadcasters were begging for more seasons. World Vision had already sold the show overseas, and demand was growing. CBS would later acquire those rights, showing how valuable they were. European audiences especially loved the strange world of Twin Peaks. There were guaranteed profits sitting on the table, and ABC walked away. Most networks would have fought for that kind of global revenue. ABC refused, choosing domestic ratings over international success. Even the fans tried everything. A group called Co-op, citizens opposed to the offing of Peaks, flooded ABC with over 10,000 letters. They sent donuts, logs, and creamed corn to executives. One weekend, they jammed ABC's voicemail with 163 messages and even shut down the fax machine. The effort worked temporarily. ABC brought back 6 more episodes in spring 1991, but they were aired out of order and in a bad time slot, ensuring failure. Fans even organized something called Operation Pine Weasel, where they bought advertised products to show the network they were valuable customers. ABC ignored it all. Robert Iger, then president of ABC Entertainment, publicly dismissed the entire campaign. And while fans were fighting to save the show, there was another silent goldmine ABC ignored: merchandising. During the early 90s, Twin Peaks merchandise was everywhere. Mail-order catalogs were thriving. Bruce Phillips, who ran one of the catalogs, bought props, cast items, and promotional material directly from crew members. He even traveled overseas to get more. After cancellation, Lynch Frost Productions held a big prop sale in Los Angeles. People bought everything: the coffee, the pie, the owls, the logs. They were more than symbols. They were profit. ABC left that all behind. Then came the final meeting. David Lynch sat with ABC executives hoping for another shot, but what they told him was clear. They said Twin Peaks didn't represent the kind of television ABC wanted to make. This was, after all, the impact, all the influence, and all the success. Lynch had only agreed to work in television because ABC promised creative freedom. Now, they were taking it back. Mark Frost said the network had become completely controlled by a corporate mindset that didn't care about art. They wanted safe, predictable content. Lynch didn't lash out. He loved the show too much, but the damage was done. ABC didn't just cancel a show. They walked away from a revolution in storytelling that would inspire decades of TV to come.